So when it comes to improvising, I think that one of the most important things you can do is actually learn solos and then analyze them and see what these guitarists are thinking, what they're doing, what kind of shapes they're using, and then you rip it off and steal it and use it on your own. Right? You can get away with this stuff in music. It doesn't count as stealing, so don't worry. A lot of people think that when you're getting into improvising, all you have to do is learn some scale shapes and then you're good to go. But the scale shapes, while they tell you what notes are going to fit together in the key, which is very helpful, and actually you'll need to know a bit of that to do this lesson, the way you get most of your phrasing and most of your licks under your fingers is by learning songs. And then, as I said, analyzing them. So that's what we're going to do today. So today we're going to look at the intro solo to Thriller's Gone by B.B. King. It's one of my favorite ones to teach when I'm getting into showing students how to go about analyzing solos and whatnot. And I've talked about this before, but I always think that blues is the best foundation for learning to improvise. Mainly because harmonically it's not too complicated, so you can easily see what's going on. And as well as that, if your blues playing is good, then I tend to find all of your kind of rock playing or whatever kind of genre you're playing, it will tend to sound good if that foundation of blues is there. And the other way around is true. Whereas if you just skip over playing blues and go straight into like shredding metal, it never really sounds that awesome. It tends to just sound like people playing through scales as fast as they possibly can, which you know, whatever. If you like it, you like it, but not my cup of tea. So let's get into it. So first of all, I'm just going to play through the solo so you have an idea of how it sounds, and then we'll get into how to go about analyzing it and what you can take away from it and what you can do to other solos as you're learning them. Right, so I just have a rhythm track recorded so that I don't have to play along with the actual recording and potentially get copyrighted or whatever. But here we go. So. Right, so you can see that's some pretty cool like blues, pentatonic-y sounding stuff. Now, let's get into it. So I have this solo up on my screen here and I'll make sure to share it in the video. And what we're going to do first of all is figure out the key of the song, because it's next to impossible to analyze what kind of scales or pentatonic shapes they're using if you don't know the key. So this song is in the key of B minor. Now in terms of how to find the keys of songs, this is like a topic for a whole nother video, but I tend to think a good way is just to go along the E string, right? If I have this rhythm track playing, I go along the E string until I find a note that sounds like the root note, then I'll play a minor chord, major chord, see what one fits, right? Or you can just Google it, but try avoid doing that, try do it by ear. Takes some time, but it pays off to be able to pick up the key there songs in quickly. Anyway, so this is in the key of B minor. So if we look at this these very first couple of bars, we have this. Right, that kind of thing. Now, what I would do is go through and I will put a little red box around all these phrases. So this to me would be the first phrase because we're staying in one finger position right before we move. So this first phrase here. How would we go about figuring out what scale that is? So the best place to start with is going to be pentatonic scales. So if I know I'm in the key of B minor, I know that my pattern 1 is going to be here. Now those notes in that first phrase, they don't fit into that scale shape, right? Because we're over here on the 12th fret. This does not go over to the 12th fret, right? But if we check pattern 2, right, we go through. Look, these 4 notes here, this is the box where that first lick is played. So right here I can see, he's starting off in pattern 2 of the pentatonic scale, right? Because pattern 1's here, pattern 2 over here. So right away I know, okay, cool, pattern 2. So the first step I would say is try transpose that lick to other keys. So let's say I move to the key of G minor. Right? Now I'm going to figure out pattern 2, so I know pattern 2's up here. Then I play that same lick. Right? That's in the key of G. What about the key of C sharp? Here. Pattern 2. Right, then pattern 1's back here. Pattern 2. Right, so I have that lick. One more, key of A. Right, pattern 2 would be over here. Right, so as you can see, it would help to be, if you're familiar with those pattern shapes going into this, but this is how you go about doing it. Now the next step, so once you practice taking that exact same lick and just transposing it to different keys, is I would put little variations on it and try and make it your own. So you can do this just by, I'll do it now, I'll just play the lick as it's written a couple of times, and then I'll add my own little twist on it using the same pentatonic shape that it's written in. So. Right, different last note. Different last note again. Right, you could see that I was taking the same idea, the same musical idea, and just, I was messing around with it a little bit, either adding a note in here or there, taking away a note, changing the last note that I was playing, all that kind of thing. So that might seem really hard to do at the beginning, but just know your framework of, okay, this lick was in pattern 2, and then just mess around with different notes in that pattern with the framework of that lick in mind. Anyway, moving on. So let's look at the next phrase. So I can tell just by looking at it. So we have, right, I would say that is a pretty good phrase there. So let's copy and paste this. Right, this 9 to that 9. And you ignore the 9s in brackets, right? That's just a held note. So the second lick. Right, so if we know we're in B minor again, right, this lick, we can see, is all using pattern 1. Okay, so, right, so that's a cool lick right there in pattern 1. Played it wrong there, but that's okay. So I'm just going to bring up a text box actually, and we'll change the color. Let's go, here we go. So this lick here is pattern 1. And if I copy and paste this over here, actually, pattern 2. Okay, so we have that pattern 1 lick. Right, again, first step, take it around a few different keys. F sharp. A. E. C sharp. Cool, so again, that's just taking the exact same lick, played note for note, but moving it to different keys. And then you would do that same thing I did with the last one, where you try add your own twist on it, come up with some variations. Different last note. Add a note in. I don't know what that was, but it was different. Right, so again, just taking the same kind of musical idea and just making it my own, coming up with some variations and all that kind of thing. And the key with this is don't be afraid to make mistakes, because that's how you figure out new things, right? You play something bad like 5 times, but then the 6th time you play something good and you're like, oh, I'll keep that. That's something I can add to my lick repertoire, inspired by B.B. King, but made your own. Now, if we keep going with this, so we won't do this for the entire solo, but if we let's look at this phrase over here. Right, so this again, if we know we're in the key of B minor, right, we have 10, full bend, and then 10, 12. Now, again, if you're familiar with this stuff, you'll know right away that that is pattern 2 of the pentatonic scale. So there's another lick. Right, again, move it around keys, G, A. Right, then come up with variations, A and B. Oops. Alright, coming up with little things. There's nothing of much substance in what I just did there, but that's okay. Now, let's go over to this lick here. Just go on this little phrase. So, we have something a bit interesting here if I just play it first of all. Right, so you can probably see most of this. Right, this is all in pattern 2, but we have one note, okay, that 11, that is not in pattern 2. Right, so a lot of people like stop here and be like, oh, there's nothing I can do because there's this note that I don't know, don't recognize it, it's throwing me off. Just don't freak out, just try contextualize it. So think, okay, he's playing in pattern 2 and he's adding this little chromatic note. Okay, oftentimes a lot of people who solo will add chromatic notes, and it's okay, you don't need to worry about it. So just know, if you're playing in pattern 2 and you're taking influence from this lick, that you can add that little chromatic note there as a way to kind of walk up, right? Walk up those notes. Okay, just like Kurt Cobain, inspired by this solo, clearly. Okay, so then I would take that idea, right? Same thing. Let's try it in the key of G. See if that chromatic note works. Right, cool. So now you have that little idea of that chromatic note. You don't need to know what he's doing, whether he's borrowing it from another scale or a mode, whatever. It doesn't matter. Just know if I'm in pattern 2, I can add that little chromatic note there if I'm in pattern 2. Repeating myself a lot. Okay. Key of C. Right, that's awesome. Right, you're getting the idea? So that is how you go about analyzing a solo. Just figure out the key. First of all, learn it. You gotta learn how to play it. Figure out what key it's in. Go through and look at little phrases where they're in certain areas of the fretboard. See if you can figure out what kind of scale they're using and what scale shape. And then take it around a few different keys, mess around with making it your own, and then put on the backing track and try link some of these things together. So I hope this was helpful, and if there's any solos that you would like me to analyze and go through a bit like this, let me know in the comments section and I'll see if I can get to it and help you out with it. But thanks for watching and see you next time.